Okay, recording. I think we're good. Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. This is Talia. I have read a lot of books this summer, and we have 15 to talk about, so I'm just gonna jump into it. But before that, little life update. I don't know if a vlog that I'm working on will go up before this video or not, but I have graduated from college. I'm taking a little bit of a rest, and that means I get to read a lot more. And this summer I got to be at home and be chilling for a little bit. I've traveled a fair bit too, which means a lot of airplane time, a lot of bookish time, and I'm happy about that. And we have a lot of books to get through. So the first book that I finished this summer was Soul of the Fox by Julie Kagawa. I don't know if I talked about this I don't think I talked about it in a video before, but the first book in the series, Shadow of the Fox, love, chef's kiss. Maybe not 5 stars, but I genuinely enjoyed it. It's a story about a half kitsune girl, which is like fox magic, so she can turn into a fox and do some magic stuff, but it's not very well liked in the human realm. So she lives in a monastery. Something goes wrong, she has to escape, and on her way to getting a piece of scroll to safety, she has to work with a demon hunter. Kitsune are also seen as not the best creatures. Demon hunter would usually kill her, but he has no idea, and they have to work together, go on this journey. There are feelings involved, but there are also darker details going on inside the demon hunter's mind and in the shadows of the realm, let's just say. And I'm talking about the first book because I can't say anything about the second book in a series without spoiling the first one. But I had genuinely enjoyed that one, and I was very excited to see the second one. This one, Soul of the Sword, I gave 2 stars. Like, it was not my cup of tea. It was another quest. We were on a journey. I love the side characters that we meet throughout this, and people are pledging allegiance to this kitsune girl left and right. Yumeko, yes, Yumeko. But nothing too climactic ever happened, and my favorite duo, which is the Demon Slayer and the Kitsune, were not together on page that long, and it very much felt like a bridge, like a second book syndrome type of situation. And I think I'm gonna give the third one a try, but I was let down, to say the least. Stay tuned to see if the third one is worth reading the whole thing, I guess. Yeah. The second book we're gonna talk about today is The City We Became by N.K. Jemisin. This was a very unique fantasy that I read early this summer. It was supposed to be for a book club with a couple friends. Ended up being just me reading the book and really enjoying it, so I guess there are no losers in that. But the story is basically, there are 5 people in New York City that suddenly have this power and innate knowledge and feeling that they are the personifications, like the human versions of each borough in the city. So Manhattan is a person, Brooklyn is a person, and I have visited New York on numerous occasions. I've read up on the history and more of which borough is characterized as what, and there are stereotypes, but there are also very authentic characteristics that N.K. Jemisin manages to capture in one human that relates to each borough, that it was so fascinating to read about. And the magic isn't even there yet, and the magic is very very soft. There's this impending doom sensation. There's this enemy that's trying to get to each of the boroughs and find the human that is New York as a whole. And if that happens, horrible things will happen. People will die. I'm not gonna say anything about what the impending danger is, but they basically have to get together and find New York, the person, and defeat this enemy. And even though the magic was very soft and it didn't feel like it had many rules to it, which is usually what I like, I thoroughly enjoyed this because I feel like it wasn't just about the world building, it was about twisting and working off of the world that is already New York, and I just loved it. 4 stars. The ending was a little rushed. I didn't like how it wrapped up. I feel like it could be a little more, we could have a grander last scene, but nevertheless, The City We Became, definitely worth your read. Oh, I made a mistake and read a Stephen King novel very early in the summer. I read Gerald's Game. And actually I've been dragging that book along for like a couple months into the summer, and I finally finished it early summer, and it was super slow. The culmination of the horror that I felt from the story was minuscule. I did eventually end up liking the story okay, so I gave it a 3 stars. But it's basically about this couple that goes away to a cabin in the woods in the middle of nowhere, and the husband's into some kinky stuff, but basically a very, very unfortunate turn of events leads to the wife being stranded in the middle of nowhere in this cabin with no one around, no access to a phone, naked, and handcuffed to a bed. And we dive into her past, her hallucinations, everything, and I do appreciate like so many of the character layers that were there, but it took so long to get there. It was so rambly, like the second fourth, very specific, the second fourth of that book could have been just tossed out the window. There is like a twist that I wouldn't really call a twist. I saw it coming a mile away. It wasn't really a twist, it was like a reveal about this person's past, and like, it was okay. Yeah, 3 stars. It was okay. Do with that what you will. Ooh, now we have my first 5 stars of the year, actually. I'm just talking about the books that I read this summer, but my reading this year was just like not it for some reason for a while. But this novella by Shannon McGuire, Down Among the Sticks and Bones, I think. Yes. I read Every Heart a Doorway, the first novella in the Wayward Children series, a while ago, and it was a good introduction to this world where magical children, children sometimes find gateways to realms that they belong in and get to go there and live there for a while, and some of them get sent back and they can't find their way back and they become very miserable in the mundane world of humans. And there's this orphanage / boarding school that takes these children in and teaches them how to cope, basically. And Jack and Jill, the twin sisters of this the second novella in the series, were introduced there, and I was super interested. They basically, in the human realm, Jacqueline or something like that, is raised to be the princess of the duo, and Jill is the tomboy, but their heart's desires are the opposite sides. But the the parents are basically assholes that do not listen to whatever their daughters want to do. they have this perfect idea of a family in their heads, and they have raised the daughters to fit into those molds. But the twins escape to this realm one day that through like a chest they find in their house, and the realm is ruled by a vampire lord, but there's also necromancy-esque things going on, and Jill gets taken away by the vampire lord as his daughter slash plaything, question mark? That was a little questionable. I didn't really understand the dynamic there, but basically she gets to be treated like a princess, but she becomes very brutal, and Jack is working with a scientist in the village, and she falls in love with a townsgirl, and it's just so beautiful and then heart-wrenching because we eventually know that they get sent back to the human realms. But I just ate this story up. The familial bonds, the mentor-mentee love, the very casual representation of sapphic love in this story. I ate it up. 5 stars. Please give this series a try. And yeah, that's all I have to say about it. This one was a doozy, ladies and gentlemen. I found myself gravitating towards, oh no, I have Kindle Unlimited now. So I was just perusing there, and I looked into, I came across Crave by Tracy Wolff, and I've heard a couple things about this book before, kind of like funny reading experiences of people. And I wanted to give it a try, and it is ridiculous. It's basically a YA fantasy romance. There are vampires, werewolves, dragons, and other stuff in this fantastical universe, and our main girl gets taken away, well, her parents die, as a classic YA fantasy trope. Her parents die, and she gets whisked away to this boarding school that her uncle runs, and within the 3rd day, we are head over heels in love with the broody, mysterious, dark vampire boy that is so strong, and he tells her to go away because she doesn't belong here, and she feels so shitty because she thinks she is a human, a regular person amongst all of these fantastical students. I was just, I don't know. The writing was not good. The story was not good. But did I enjoy it? Yes, I did. As the first book, I think I'm not gonna go. I tried reading the second book of the series too. No, I just can't do it. Not my taste. Maybe if it was like 5-6 years ago, I would have liked it, but right now, I had fun with the first book. I laughed at it for a little bit because literally head over heels, like I'll do anything in the world for this boy in love. The 3rd day, girl, what you doing? Like, no. But that was that, and just out of pure enjoyment, I did give it a 3 stars. But would I recommend it? I'll just say take what I said about it and make that decision yourself. It did take me like 1.5 days to read, tops, so maybe give it a try. 6th book. We're not even halfway through this list. This is gonna be a long video. I read another Talia Hibbert book. This woman cannot do wrong in my books. Highly suspicious and unfairly cute. And this was, I think, a YA romance. Yes, it was. These are high schoolers. It's a YA romance, and I read the Brown Sisters trilogy by her, so I'm more used to like the funny but steamy, ooh, like a little more grown-up romances, but this was so cute. 5 stars. It's kind of like a friends to enemies to lovers sort of trope going on in the book. I genuinely forget the character names, but our heroine and hero used to be very tight-knit friends. And then come high school, he got cool and she did not. And there was this rift between them. And now she thinks that he hates him and she in turn hates him, but they end up going to the same leadership camp. I think was it in the summer? I think it was a fall thing. I'm not entirely sure, but they're at this camp and they have to interact with each other and secrets are spilled and there's just so much yearning and honestly very healthy communication after a while. Like, I was like, you can't be teenagers. The emotional intelligence, wow. Did you go to therapy? Maybe. Well, she did for different reasons, but there are still things to get over and they're getting over them together and I genuinely loved every step of it. Was some dialogue a little cringy or maybe a little too young for me? Maybe, I don't care. It's a 5 stars and read it. Moving on. And then I have only one audiobook in this list. I listened to Maybe You Should Talk to Someone by Lori Gottlieb, and this is basically a nonfiction memoir slash like therapist basically sharing both their story. I think they use she, her pronouns, I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. She kind of tells the story of her own therapy journey and also mentions the stories of other patients that she was seeing, obviously not mentioning names, and probably there are so many permissions that went into it, but I enjoyed it. It was a good read to have in the background when I was walking places. There were some characters that went to therapy that I was very interested in the story of, just not the therapist herself. I genuinely just wanted to hear more about this old lady that she was seeing and this very arrogant asshole type dude that she was seeing, and wanted to get to the bottom of their problems because I felt just more invested in them. But overall it was a good listen. I really enjoyed the narrator. I think if you would like some perspective and like want to hear about other people's lives and struggles, it would be a good book to pick up. I was in a place where like most of these epiphanies and moments in the book were a little bit like, duh. Yeah, that is something you should be. It can change from person to person what you get out of this book, but I do think it would be worth your while, especially if you pick up the audiobook. You wouldn't lose anything. Okay. Malice by John Gwynne. I haven't felt like this about a series or a piece of media since the first time I watched Game of Thrones. It's this more brutalistic part of me. You know, if you've seen any of my videos, I read romance, I read fantasy romance, I read some like more intense stuff, but usually there's like a mood that catches me and then I'm like, oh, give me the blood. This was it. This was it. Oh my goodness. Okay, this world, let me set the scene. Humans and giants are at war. Not active war yet, but tensions are brewing. There might be magic in the world, but it's very hush-hush, very secretive, and people are just like not trustworthy. There are so many POVs that we just jump into. And you get a little lost in the beginning, but then every POV starts like coming together and you see the connections. Some of them are warriors, one of them is just a child living in this kingdom, one of them is a prince. But then all of the puzzle pieces, John Gwynne just starts putting them together in this like mayhem of a portrait, and you just sit there and watch it come together. It was incredible. The fight scenes he describes I get goosebumps. I get goosebumps just like thinking about how I felt reading through this book. Incredible world building, incredible imagery. The weaving of so many plot lines together was masterful, and I cannot wait to pick up Valor, the second book in the series. I think this series is called The Faithful and the Fallen. But yeah, I have Valor on my Kindle now. My library loan came through and I need to read it ASAP because the end of the book just culminates in such a, like, you recognize some tropes and then John Gwynne just like topples them right on their heads, and it's so exquisite. Go read it. This was a 5 stars. And then, after such a bloody, brutal, and more hardcore fantasy, what did I crave? What could I have craved? I read A Court of Frost and Starlight. I think I just wanted to go into the Sarah J. Maas universe again, which oh my god, I dove right in. But I had read the first trilogy and I was on the fence about whether I should or should not read this like novella about like Christmas time and whatever. But I guess there was some character development involving the inner circle of the Night Court. If you don't know about this series, are you living under a rock? You can skip to the next book, but it basically nothing really happens, but there is character building. I think it did add a little more to the next book that I read, which was A Court of Silver Flames. The novella I did just give 3 stars to. There's a lot of trauma processing and like trying to heal from the war that they had and everything. So if you want some smut and also to see what the aftermath of the war was, which I think it was very glossed over just from Feyre's point of view, like people died. I feel like Courtney now. Kim, there are people that are dying. But A Court of Silver Flames was about my girl, Nesta. The bitchiest of the Archeron sisters, and I honestly liked this book. Like, I think I consume too much book talk and booktube content to have an unbiased opinion of things, and most content I consume is actually like criticizing these books, and they're like, oh my god, no, and making fun of the like smut scenes. And honestly, I could read a Sarah J. Maas smut scene. Why not? I don't find myself cringing that hard at the way she writes these scenes, and A Court of Silver Flames has a lot of them. Because, you know, Nesta and dear Cass, our warrior prince, whatever, they have a little thing going. And Nesta is basically, at the beginning of the book, is so irritable and like is drinking the night away every day and basically wasting away. And then Rhysand and Feyre decide she's gonna go to the House of the Wind with Cassian to train for war and help with there's like a library of library and priestesses that work at the library. She's gonna be helping there, and she's gonna be training to fight and whatever. So basically it's a lot of trying to heal, them snarling at each other, Nesta being bitchy, Nesta hurting a couple of people very bad emotionally, and then trying to redeem herself. And I feel like there was some plot, some action going on in there. I gave it a 4 stars. I don't care whatever anyone says. I really enjoyed this book, and that's all I have to say. Second, 3 books at the same time. We're gonna talk about them. I started the Throne of Glass series, naturally, right after I finished ACOTAR. The first book, Throne of Glass, was Sarah J. Maas's first published YA fantasy. I hated Celaena Selena, whatever, how do you say it, Sardothian, so much. But I've heard that it gets better in the following books, and I was like, okay, we're just gonna get through this. It's basically, she is in the salt mines of Endovir and is slaving away because she used to be an assassin and she's now enslaved, but she is set free by the crown prince, and he says there is this competition to be the king's champion, and if you win it, you'll get a 4-year contract, and after that you can be free. So she's like, I'm already almost dying, get me out of here, we go to the competition. She talks about being the best killer ever, she thinks she's the best killer ever, but we never ever see those actions in this book. Like, it's always like, she could have killed them in this many seconds if she wanted to. Girl, why don't you want to? They enslaved you, they killed all your people. And I feel like it was a lot of just this teenager being moody and whatever throughout the book, but there's some romance brewing, there was some, you know, mysteries that are engulfing. I just took this as like a stepping stone towards the next series because this was the first ever book published by her. I gave it a 3 stars, moved on. Crown of Midnight, everything improved so drastically. So drastically. Characters got better. Plot got thicker, Selena got a little more bearable, so bear with us. The darkness in the kingdom is growing and Selena is discovering things about herself, magic, and the dark secrets in the castle, so much more. So much more. She is off to another romantic quest, and that's okay by me. I heard a lot of people criticize, oh my god, she's jumping from one guy to the next. I don't really care. I don't really mind because it's fun to, you know, spice it up, keep it fresh or something. And so I gave this book a 4 stars. And the next book, Heir of Fire, I literally read last night. I was in bed reading until 2 a.m. with tears in my eyes, my heart and my throat. I don't know why I cared so much more about this one character that was introduced into Selena's life. She is getting stronger and plot is thickening, and there will be a lot more consequences in terms of like war and politics in the kingdom, and shit is about to hit the fan and I can feel it, and this book was the culmination of those, and I really enjoyed the reading experience. It's a long book, it's like 500 plus pages, but I really just flew through it. And what else? I gave it a 4.5 because shit is getting better. The last 2 books I'm gonna talk about really quickly. I read Vengeful, which is the second book in the Vicious duology by V.E. Schwab. I had mixed feelings about the first one. It's like a extraordinaries, people having supernatural powers if they go through a near-death experience sort of thing, and these 2 dudes want to mimic that experience to get powers, and they're not good people, and they end up resenting and hating each other over something, and they were hunting each other, the first book. And this second book, there is also this corporation that wants to keep tabs on extraordinaries, but I didn't really care about the main characters, the Victor's like goals. I didn't really care about if anyone died or lived. I think it is very difficult to establish that sort of caring when characters are very dislikable, but I've cared about and like was at least curious about so many unlikable characters in the past, and this was just like, the intrigue wasn't there for me, the tension never built, so sadly this series was a no-go. I'm giving this second book like a 2.5. That is just my opinion, and I don't think I'm gonna go back to like superhero-esque powers in terms of reading, you know? I like to watch that. I like more magical stuff in my reading, I think. The last book I read, I'm going to talk about very quickly because I'm doing a full vlog that involves this book. Love on the Brain by Ali Hazelwood. Of course, we're ending with a romance. of course, it is another Reylo sounding fanfiction-y, tropey thing. Woman in STEM, neuroscientist. Man in STEM, engineer. Grad school rivals, or were they? Nemesis, or were they? Did he hate her? Did he? Of course not. But they end up having to work together in a lab, and there's so much tension, and there's so much like yearning on the guy's side. It's not a spoiler. I love it when like you can tell that they are fucking falling for each other, and the girl is a little too stubborn in saying, oh my god, he just hates me. Oh my god, this is nothing that we have. So that was a little, like, that happened one too many times. That's why I gave it a 4 stars, but overall, I loved the banter, the relationship, the scientific things that were going on in the background. It took like a thrillery turn toward the end, which was unexpected. I don't know if it was necessary, but I enjoyed it. So that is Love on the Brain. Smut scenes, smuttin'. I liked it. I liked this read. And that concludes my summer reads of 2023. I'm so glad to be able to be making more content on here, so I'm excited to be talking more about books and reading more, hopefully this year. If you had any favorite reads from this summer, please leave them in the comments down below, but otherwise, until the next video, toodaloo!